At 0645 hours on October 25, 1944, Commander Ernest E. Evans stood on the bridge of USS Johnston, watching the horizon darken with Japanese warship silhouettes 20 miles northwest of Samar Island, feeling the deck vibrate beneath his boots as his crew reached General Quarters stations. 36 years old, 5'7", 145 pounds, Native American, Muskogee Creek and Cherokee descent, graduate of United States Naval Academy, class of 1931. Commander of Fletcher-class destroyer USS Johnston since October 1943. 13 months in command. 1 year of Pacific combat operations. This was not a destroyer's fight. Evans was born in Pawnee, Oklahoma, raised in poverty. Joined the Naval Academy through competitive appointment. Graduated 451st in a class of 441 candidates who completed the program. Commissioned ensign June 1931. Served aboard battleships, cruisers, destroyers for 13 years before receiving command. USS Johnston. Commissioned October 27, 1943. Displacement 2,050 tons. Length 376 feet. Armament 5 5-inch guns, 10 21-inch torpedo tubes. Depth charges. Crew complement 327 men. Standard doctrine. Destroyers screened larger ships. They laid smoke. They hunted submarines. They did not engage battleships alone. The Japanese force closing on Samar included 4 battleships, 6 heavy cruisers, 2 light cruisers, and 11 destroyers. Combined displacement 219,000 tons. Johnston displaced 2,050 tons. The strategic situation was clear. Admiral Halsey's Third Fleet had pursued Japanese carriers north, leaving 7th Fleet's escort carriers vulnerable off Samar. 6 escort carriers, Fanshawe Bay, St. Lo, White Plains, Callinan Bay, Kitkin Bay, Gambier Bay, orbited east of Samar with 3 destroyers and 4 destroyer escorts as screen. Escort carriers. Maximum speed 17 knots. Armament optimized for ground support, not naval combat. Each carrier displaced 7,800 tons with flight deck armor measured in inches, not feet. Admiral Kurita's center force approached from the west at 0645 hours. His flagship Yamato, 72,000 tons, 9 18.1-inch guns. Maximum effective range 45,000 yards. Second battleship Nagato, 45,950 tons, 8 16-inch guns. Congo and Haruna, 36,600 tons each, 8 14-inch guns. Heavy cruisers Haguro, Chikai, Kumano, Suzuya, Tone, and Chikuma, each mounting 10 8-inch guns with range exceeding 30,000 yards. The mathematics were simple. Kurita's battleships outweighed the American escort carriers 6-1 and could engage from ranges where carrier aircraft couldn't effectively strike back in the dawn darkness. Evans received contact reports at 0644 hours. Multiple large ships bearing 260 degrees, range 35,000 yards, 17 miles, speed approximately 20 knots, course 120 degrees, directly toward the escort carriers. At 0647 hours, Japanese shells began falling near the carriers. Colored splashes, red, green, yellow, purple. Each battleship using different dye markers to spot its own fall of shot. Range, 34,800 yards. The escort carriers began making smoke and turning east, accelerating to maximum speed, 17 knots. Kurita's battleships could make 27 knots. The Japanese would close the range at 10 knots differential. Time to effective gun range for Japanese heavy cruisers, approximately 30 minutes. Time until escort carriers came under concentrated battleship fire at close range, perhaps 45 minutes. Johnston's maximum speed, 35 knots. Maximum effective range of 5-inch guns, 18,000 yards. Johnston carried 10 Mark 15 torpedoes with 18,000-yard maximum range at reduced speed settings. Standard torpedo attack doctrine required approach to 10,000 yards or closer for reliable targeting solutions. Do me a quick favor, tap the like button. Every like tells YouTube this story deserves to be seen by more people. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We're bringing overlooked wartime stories back into the light every day. Stories of crews, soldiers, and ordinary people driven by resolve and duty. Real lives, real bravery. Back to Evans. At 0650 hours, Evans ordered flank speed. Johnston accelerated toward the Japanese fleet. Alone. No orders received. No coordination with other destroyers. Standard destroyer doctrine. Await orders from squadron commander before attacking. Squadron commander aboard hull transmitted at 0652 hours ordering all destroyers to prepare for torpedo attack. Evans was already closing at 35 knots. Range to nearest Japanese heavy cruiser, 31,000 yards, 15.5 miles. Closure rate at combined speeds, approximately 55 knots, 1 mile per minute. Time to torpedo range, approximately 13 minutes. Johnston's crew manned battle stations. Gun crews loaded 5-inch guns. Torpedo crews checked Mark 15 settings. Fire control radar locked onto the leading Japanese cruiser. Evans ordered smoke generators activated. Johnston's stack began pouring white chemical smoke, laying a screen between the escort carriers and approaching Japanese ships. At 0658 hours, range close to 20,000 yards, 10 miles. Japanese cruisers opened fire on Johnston. Salvos of 8-inch shells weighing 260 pounds each began falling around the destroyer. Johnston maintained course. Speed, 35 knots. The ship vibrated. Hull plate sinking as steam turbines pushed 60,000 shaft horsepower through reduction gears. Range, 18,000 yards. Johnston's forward 5-inch guns opened fire. Maximum elevation. Shells arced toward Japanese cruiser Kumano. Limited effect. 5-inch shells weighed 55 pounds. Armor penetration against heavy cruiser belt armor. Minimal beyond 15,000 yards. Johnston continued closing. At 0703 hours, range reached 10,000 yards, 5 miles. Evans ordered hard left rudder. Johnston turned to unmask port torpedo tubes. Fire control solution locked. Target, heavy cruiser Kumano, leading the Japanese formation. Range, 9,500 yards. Speed, 28 knots. Angle on the bow, 70 degrees port. At 0705 hours and 30 seconds, Johnston fired all 10 torpedoes. 2-second intervals. Mark 15 torpedoes. 3,000-pound warheads, 533 millimeters diameter. 46 knots speed at medium range setting. Runtime to target, approximately 4 minutes 30 seconds. Evans ordered hard right rudder. Johnston turned away, making smoke, increasing range. Japanese cruisers concentrated fire. Shells fell closer. At 0707 hours, an 8-inch shell struck Johnston's bridge. The shell penetrated the pilot house, detonating inside. Evans was blown backward. Shrapnel severed 2 fingers on his left hand. Fragments struck his chest and neck. Minor wounds. He remained standing. The helmsman died instantly. Fire control equipment destroyed. Communication systems severed. Johnston's bridge was open to the air. Forward bulkhead gone. At 0710 hours, torpedoes reached Kumano. 3 explosions. 2 torpedoes struck the heavy cruiser's bow. 3rd hit amidships. Kumano's bow separated from the hull. The cruiser turned away, flooding forward. Speed reduced to 8 knots. Range, 12,000 yards. Johnston had eliminated Carrida's lead cruiser in the first 7 minutes of engagement. Evans transferred command functions to F steering station. Johnston continued making smoke, withdrawing east. At 0714 hours, Battleship Congo fired a full salvo at Johnston. Range, 22,000 yards. 14-inch shells bracketed the destroyer. One shell struck Johnston's aft engine room. The shell penetrated the hull below the waterline, detonating against reduction gear casing. Aft engine room flooded instantly. 7 men killed. Steam lines ruptured. Johnston's speed dropped from 35 knots to 17 knots. One engine room operational. One propeller shaft turning. At 0720 hours, Evans received damage reports. Aft engine room flooded. After fire room operational but isolated. Bridge destroyed. Primary fire control offline. Steering shifted to aft station. Speed, 17 knots maximum. Main battery. Guns 2, 3, 4, and 5 operational. Gun 1 damaged but repairable. Torpedo tubes empty. Johnston continued laying smoke between Japanese fleet and escort carriers. The other destroyers, Hull, Heermann, and Samuel B. Roberts, launched their torpedo attacks at 0725 hours. Combined with smoke and evasive maneuvers by escort carriers, the attacks forced Japanese battleships to turn away temporarily, opening range. But Carrida's force remained between the carriers and safety. At 0730 hours, Japanese heavy cruisers began working around the northern edge of the smoke screen. At 0740 hours, Evans observed Japanese cruiser column approaching escort carrier Gambier Bay from the north. Range, 18,000 yards from Johnston's position. Gambier Bay, 11,000 yards from Japanese cruisers. The carrier was inside effective range. 8-inch shells began hitting Gambier Bay. The carrier's flight deck armor, 1/2-inch steel. Penetration was certain. Evans ordered Johnston to intercept. Speed, 17 knots. Course, 310 degrees. Directly toward the Japanese cruiser column. At 17-knot maximum speed, Johnston required 35 minutes to close from 18,000 yards to effective gun range against cruisers. Johnston turned anyway. At 0750 hours, Johnston's gun crews opened fire at maximum range. 5-inch guns elevated to 45 degrees. Shells arced toward Japanese cruiser Chikai. Range, 16,000 yards. Effects, minimal. Chikai continued firing on Gambier Bay. Evans continued closing. At 0755 hours, range dropped to 12,000 yards. Johnston's shells began straddling Chikai. The Japanese cruisers shifted fire from Gambier Bay to Johnston. 8-inch salvos walked toward the destroyer. At 0758 hours, multiple shells struck Johnston amidships. One shell penetrated the after crew quarters, detonating below decks. 14 men killed. Another shell struck the forward stack, severing it at the base. The stack collapsed across the deck. Smoke and steam poured from the wound. A third shell struck gun mount 3, jamming the turret at 90 degrees elevation. Gun 3, offline. Range, 10,000 yards. Johnston maintained fire with remaining guns. At 0802 hours, Johnston's shells struck Chikai's bridge. The cruiser's pagoda mast sparked with explosions. Secondary detonations rippled across Chikai's superstructure. The cruiser turned away, speed dropping. Fires visible amidships. Chikai withdrew from the engagement, steering erratic. Johnston had damaged a second Japanese heavy cruiser, but Johnston was dying. Speed, 12 knots. 3 guns operational. Hull hold in 7 locations. Flooding progressive in multiple compartments. The destroyer continued engaging Japanese cruisers approaching the escort carriers. At 0815 hours, Japanese destroyer squadron closed from the west. 4 destroyers, Asagumo, Yamagumo, Nawaki, and Kishinami. Combined displacement, 8,400 tons. Combined armament, 25-inch guns. Range, 8,000 yards. The Japanese destroyers opened concentrated fire on Johnston. Shells hit every 15 seconds. At 0820 hours, gun mount 2 took a direct hit. Turret destroyed. Crew killed. At 0823 hours, the forward fire room took multiple hits. Steam pressure dropped. Speed, 7 knots. At 0825 hours, gun mount 4 ammunition magazine exploded. Blast opened a 40-foot hole in Johnston's port side. The destroyer listed 15 degrees to port. Speed, 5 knots. 2 guns remained operational. At 0830 hours, Evans ordered abandon ship. Johnston was dead in the water. List, 20 degrees. Fires burned across 3 decks. The crew began going over the side. Life rafts deployed. Men jumped into the Philippine Sea. Water temperature, 84 degrees. At 0845 hours, Japanese destroyer Yukikaze closed to 2,000 yards. The destroyer's captain observed Johnston's crew abandoning ship. Yukikaze's captain saluted Johnston's bridge. The Japanese destroyer did not fire. At 0850 hours, Johnston rolled onto her port side. The bow lifted. At 0855 hours, USS Johnston sank. Position, 11 degrees 46 in, 126 degrees 22 E. Depth, 21,180 feet. 186 men went into the water. Evans was not among the survivors. Rescue operations began at 1400 hours. October 25th. Destroyer escorts picked up survivors over the next 8 hours. 50 men died from wounds before rescue. 32 men died from exposure, shark attack, and drowning during the 48 hours in the water before final rescue. Total Johnston casualties, 186 killed, 141 survived. Commander Ernest E. Evans was listed as killed in action. Body not recovered. He was last seen on Johnston's bridge as the ship sank. Witnesses reported he went down with the ship. Evans was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. Approved May 1945. Presented to his widow, Kitty Evans, November 1945. By Admiral Chester Nimitz at ceremony in Washington, D.C. Citation: conspicuous gallantry and intrepid valor above and beyond the call of duty. Evans received the decoration for attacking the Japanese fleet without orders and for continuing engagement after sustaining mortal damage to his ship. The citation recorded Johnston's role in disrupting Kurita's attack formation and protecting the escort carriers. Kurita withdrew center force at 0925 hours, October 25th. The escort carriers survived. 5 carriers escaped. Gambier Bay sank. Johnston, Hull, and Samuel B. Roberts were lost. The battle off Samar cost 3 American destroyers and 1 escort carrier. Kurita lost 3 heavy cruisers sunk or damaged beyond combat capability. The invasion of Leyte proceeded on schedule. Do me a quick favor. Tap the like button. Every like tells YouTube this story deserves to be seen by more people. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We're bringing overlooked wartime stories back into the light every day. Stories of crews, soldiers, and ordinary people driven by resolve and duty. Real lives, real bravery. Leave a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Are you in the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, or somewhere else? This audience reaches across the entire world. You're not just watching, you're helping preserve history. Let us know if someone in your family served, or simply let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure these stories are not forgotten. They deserve to be remembered, and your support makes that possible. USS Johnston's wreck was located in October 2019 by expedition team aboard research vessel pressure drop. Depth: 21,180 feet. Deepest shipwreck ever located at that time. Hull largely intact. Bridge recognizable despite damage. The ship rests upright on the Philippine sea floor. Bow pointed east, the direction Evans was steering when Johnston sank 75 years earlier.